Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to see so many people here today for one of our professorial lectures, which is a very important element of our outreach, both to ourselves and to our friends and colleagues, and just interested people outside of the university as well. I have not been asked, but that's maybe because I've only just entered the room, I've not been asked to make any fire announcements. But you're going to make them. Paul is going to make them. He is really good at that. Your presence here will be rewarded just by that. But it's a great pleasure for me to welcome you. And as I say, it's a really important element of our life and our outreach. It's also very important because the topic we're going to hear from tonight from Babs is beyond petroleum, which of course is a particularly significant area of interest and of research and indeed of our activity as a university. And so I'm personally particularly looking forward to hearing the lecture and then to have an opportunity for some interaction afterwards. In a moment, I'm going to ask Professor Paul Hagen, the Vice Principal for Research, to introduce Babs. At the end of the lecture, there will be some opportunity for questions and answers. And then there will be refreshments outside. So if you then, at the end of the meeting, when it's all over, if you make your way back out the way you came in, you'll find refreshments there. In the meantime, I really hope that you will enjoy the evening, and I myself look forward very much to hearing the lecture. Thank you very much.
Okay, I don't know whether I'll need this or not, but we'll use it. Okay. So there are no planned fire evacuations tonight, you'll be pleased to hear. If the fire alarm sounds, you'll hear a bell and an announcement, and please evacuate the building quickly via the nearest exit. There's an exit here, there are exits at the back, and in an orderly manner. But let me go first. Once outside, follow the signs to the nearest assembly points, and there'll be staff outside waiting to direct you to them if we need them. But I hope that's not going to be necessary. So, introducing Babs tonight. A long and distinguished career in his field. Started off his career as studying mechanical engineering at the University of Benin in the Faculty of Engineering in Nigeria. He then went into industry. He worked with Shell before moving on to study a master's and a PhD in petroleum engineering at Heriot-Watt University. He then renewed his engagement with the University of Benin, eventually becoming the head of petroleum engineering at the university. And then, following a period as a research associate at Heriot-Watt University, he came to join us here at RGU in 1996, I believe. And he's progressed in his career, and the reason we're here today, of course, is to celebrate in part his professorial status and to give you the benefit of his wisdom. Babs has major expertise and interests in a whole range of topics related to petroleum and the oil and gas industry. And I'll read some of them. This is not my field. Multi-phase fluid flow dynamics, which will mean something to some of you. Integrated sand management. And Babs is a key player in a sand management network with significant industry players from around the region. Produced water management, oil and gas engineering, unconventional reservoir management, flow assurance, and production optimization in deep water environments. In other words, all you ever wanted to know about oil and gas in the North Sea and beyond. He has over 100 technical publications to his credit. He's a chartered engineer, a registered engineer, a fellow of the Higher Education Academy, a member of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, and a member of the European Association of Geoscientists and Engineers. And throughout his time here at RGU, Babs has made many significant contributions, both in teaching and in research. And interestingly for Babs, unlike many academics, much of his effort has been focused on solving the problems that industry has. And that's really very important, particularly in the current context. As Ferdinand says, tonight's lecture, Beyond Petroleum, about matters of energy supply and demand, the need for alternative approaches to managing oil and gas resources, and the opportunities for universities to play to help the industry at what is a critical time for the North Sea Basin. Now, some of you who are as young as I am will remember the impact of induced energy gaps, and Babs is going to talk about energy gaps. When I say induced, you'll remember the 3-day week, the reduction in oil control from the Gulf, and the miners' strike, closing off coal supply to power stations. And some of you, like me, probably did your homework by candlelight. The reality of energy gaps are still there, and we'll hear a little bit about that tonight. Babs isn't shy. He doesn't mind courting controversy, so I'm sure we're in for a very entertaining and interesting evening. So please welcome Professor Babs Oyeneyin. Babs,
Thank you, sir. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Cartographical protocol, so Vice Chancellor, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I just want to recognize the presence of two of my mentors. That might surprise you at my old age. You need that within the industry, and for students among us, you need an everlasting mentor. First, of course, is Steve Bedford, manager with BP, sitting up there. And the young lady in front here, Dr. Myriad, they still kick my backside, and they keep me on top of issues. I actually want to give credit to my troops. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here. They actually got me to change the topic, especially Fumi, who was trying to get from New York, and she's on the other side of the petroleum. She doesn't like us, though she makes money from our business. And I was going to actually talk about the high-octane research to my colleagues, and she said, look, there is a lot of controversy. We need to hear from the real side, and I think we've been very shy about that. And we've been facing a lot of battering in the last 1 year, and everybody thinking oil is on a downturn because of the economic downturn, and everybody hammering us and looking for alternatives. Now, we have no problem with that. There's room for everybody. There's a room for energy mix. But I want to tell you right now, we are in an energy crisis, as I'm speaking with you. In the next 10 years, it's going to be worse in the UK unless we do something about it. And that's part of what I want to talk about today. The challenge, actually, is the fact that this petroleum, we've only actually explored 10% of the Earth crust, and only 40% of that, especially in the North Sea, if we've recovered. So there's 60% still left, even in the areas that have been explored. And to be able to move it to the next level, because there's a lot of gap, in 10 years' time, we'll be seriously short of petroleum. The demand is much higher because of China, India, and countries like Nigeria. They are progressing rapidly. And at the end of the day, we need game-changing technologies to be able to even get from the mature fields, and at the same time, explore the new frontiers. And that's part of what I want to share with you today. And petroleum will continue to be with us. I don't want to exaggerate, but really, even with the pace at which we are going, it will take 1,000 years to get through that. And you can quote me on it. So part of what I want to share today, it's my view. And like Paul said, I've been in this industry now since 1972 as a young student. That's where I got hooked and been moving through that. So what I'm going to share with you today is my experience, mine only, but I'm going to support that with industry authorities and international, World Energy Council, OPEC, even BP, Statistical Review. Many of you may want to look at that. ExxonMobil, Oil and Gas Authority documents, International Energy Association. So I'm going to make it less octane and maybe take it further from there, because I believe people tend to misrepresent petroleum. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude about this, but for each and every one of us here, from the top of our head to the sole of our feet, are all products of petroleum. It's not just the power supply. So as we even generate the other resources, there's an increasing demand on petroleum. So how do we deal with that? Like I said, we will need game-changing technologies, but it's people that actually deliver technology. So we need skilled manpower. And that's our job in the university. So the university is going to be my focus. How do we get into there? Because universities take these handouts from government. And you can see we are panicking about Brexit. To move in the next 10 years, those areas are going to dry out. So universities need to start running as a business. So part of what I want to be able to offer is to actually encourage universities to start doing that. And RGU has put some things in place. And it means like a business, some will disappear. There will be takeover. City University has already been taken over in London by University of London. And more will happen like that. So we are stakeholders in the business, and those are some of the things I want to try and share with you. So in going through that, I'm going to at least giving you some evidence of some of these scenarios in terms of the demand and supply gap. I'm going to also be talking about the North Sea in particular, especially as far as the mature fields are concerned. But more importantly, looking at some of the new frontiers, especially in West Africa and East Africa. But I think I want to focus slightly on the UK challenge and what's the future for us and what's the opportunity for universities, and especially yours truly here. I'm not going to answer the question on giving you the game-changing technologies. I'm just going to raise some questions to ginger some interest from colleagues. So I put my hands up. Don't hold me responsible for making the wrong conclusions. And the principal is here to at least to watch my back. So I'm happy about that. Is there any future for petroleum? Honestly, the answer emphatically yes. It's the only one that has a future. The others are being subsidized. And we still need them, and they need to be able to complement, not supplement, those key areas. But the key part is the subsidy may dry out, but more importantly, the petroleum actually had a lot of other products that we rely on. So I want to start by actually giving the definition of that. It's actually a complex mixture of hydrocarbons. So at the end of the day, it can occur as liquid, which we call the crude oil, can occur as natural gas. And of course, you can have condensate, natural gas liquids, and it has an array of byproducts. Just too many. At my last count, I think there are at least 500. Like I said, literally everything in this room is a byproduct. So as we develop and advance, there is the need to be able to enhance what we do, and that's where they're coming from. Energy is just one of them. And when people are condemning petroleum and say we should leave them on the ground, it's only these they are emphasizing. But they need the roads. They need the clothes they have to wear. They all come from petroleum. So these are some of the challenges we face. So can we cut our face to spite it? And I'm not here to talk about politics. We in academia, politicians are elected to take decisions as far as political decisions are concerned. But we have a responsibility to be able to give them informed facts on the basis of which they can make their judgment. And that's one of the areas that I'm going to be talking about. So the shale gas is one of that. There's a decline in the North Sea, and you will see later. Well, like I said, it's only just 40%. Is there still hope for the North Sea? Definitely yes. But it will take more of the technology. But I'll call the shale gas and oil as the low-hanging fruits. Scotland will be in an energy crisis in 10 years' time if we don't handle those low-hanging fruits. So we will be. The area of cheap oil import or gas import is gone. I can tell you right now, as I'm speaking, every marginal field operator in Nigeria is building a refinery. Nigeria is 140 million. In 10 years' time, Nigeria will be importing oil as well, not exporting. We get most of our LNG from Nigeria right now. We will not have that. So can we take care of the low-hanging fruit? My answer is yes. And at the end of the day, I'm happy that the government has actually come to allowing us to have a public discussion and debate about this. But we in the university have a responsibility to be able to at least show the government what the economic risks are, what the technical risks are, and then they can take decisions. That's not for us to do. So these are some of the key issues that come into play. And there's room for all of these others. The nuclear, we know what it is. I think it's already on its way out in Scotland. And the hydros is going on. The wind, of course, from Scotland point of view, I think that's been the main kid on the block. And there are others. So these are the energy mix, but these ones here will continue to lead. And I want to be able to show some key examples of that. And you can see, it is true that the renewables are actually advancing at about 6%, roughly about 6%, almost 7% every year for the next 10 years. But you can still see here that in terms of percentage of share, it is the hydrocarbons that are going to continue to lead. Yes, we need resources from here perhaps to continue to subsidize this, but they will continue to have that big advantage. And this is just for the 10-year period. And in looking at this, there is no doubt there is continuing to be growth in China and all of the areas that are now emerging nations, I like to call them. And generally, we are already conserving as far as hydrocarbons are concerned, but you can see from this perspective that the oil and the gas together are still going to continue to be leaders. And in 10 years' time, there's an overall reduction, and that is part of what is contributing to an increase in the gap between demand and supply. And that's a threat to all of us. And part of the reason is this. These countries, like I said, Nigeria, India, China, even they alone can consume everything that the whole world is producing. If, for example, China is allowed middle-class family having 2 cars, there will be 2 billion cars in China. I will consume everything that we have right now. So we have a serious challenge. And even for OPEC, this is the current gap. Even the US with the shale gas, they still, and the others are still not solving. And with the OPEC, we expect that they will fill that. But there's a problem with OPEC. And I want to just quickly go into this part. That at the end of the day, if you look at these scenarios here, I call them volatile countries. They're so unstable, anything can happen. In Nigeria, for example, partly on a daily basis, the export pipeline is blown up. There's war in the Middle East. So if we lose some of that, then that becomes a very serious challenge for us to fill that gap. But having said that, like I said before, in Nigeria, for example, there has been a loss of export because 40% of Nigerian crude and gas used to go to the US. They are now self-sufficient, and that's what has forced the inward thinking. Last year, it's already a policy, and all of the marginal field operators are building refineries, and even the old refineries that have been defunct, the government is investing in them. The biggest petrochemical plant as of 2016 is in Nigeria. It's a $10 billion project. And there's also a $20 billion gas pipeline network. So in 10 years, they might even be importing crude and gas. That's a challenge for all of us. But it's an opportunity for them. But that will eat into the gap within the system. So with the refineries increasing and all these countries developing, the 2 countries now with the higher GDP rise are Nigeria and India. And it may surprise many of you, and many of the other African countries are following that same process. They are net importers. So if we take this a little bit further then, we continue to see increase in the gasoline and the diesel and many of the others that we are getting. And by 2035, unless some of these actually fill those gaps, that's where the problems come from. I like to see more of the renewable, but the trend of the increase is so minimal. The impact right now is difficult. When there's no wind in Scotland, we've got a problem. The wind farms will not survive. Does that mean we shouldn't encourage them? Of course we have to. But we are downgrading the nuclear, but more of that gas is where the opportunities actually come from. And likewise, when it comes to the North Sea. So, in summary on that, it's the demand factors because of the economic growth in China, India, and especially Nigeria. The energy security in the US as well. And of course, like I showed before, the unstable exporting countries like in OPEC. But many of these countries, again, that are exporters now are going to be net importers. So they eat into that same pot. But we are having an increasing amount of mature assets and the low recovery factor of the 40% that I talked about earlier. And you can see the trends here. The OECD, or the so-called developing countries, are already flattening out, but you can see the growth in all of the others. And the GDP, the wealth creation is part of what is actually some of the reasons behind that. And that's where petroleum becomes a very important part of the mix. And we don't deal with that, and we have to be able, for security, we have to ensure that these countries also remain stable. From any angle that we will look at it, I brought this deliberately, again, giving credit to my daughter. She claimed that we create most of the footprint. And these questions are questionable. Or these data sets that have been bandied around. This is the greenhouse gas relationship. So the coals actually dominate, and it's claimed that oil. But a lot of the natural gas, we know they're already efficient. So I don't believe some of these numbers, and that's where gas has become really very important. And to keep these rooms warm, the most efficient are still the hydrocarbons. So this is the oil, this is the gas liquid, and you still see gas. So if I add all of this together, it's way, way above any of the others. So the efficiency level is much higher. And that's why we use them. And that's why, especially for the gas, it's going to continue to dominate for quite a time to come. But like I said, this is all we've just dealt with. This is what is available. Is this red, as I'm speaking with you, is all we've touched. There's still a huge amount of the shale. There's still a huge amount of other crude oil, heavy, name it. And there's still a huge amount of undiscovered, in billions or trillions, because if you then look at that. So it's not going to disappear in no time. And gas has continued to increase in trends. And the consumption is going to continue to increase over time. And the sources are recognized sources that actually have the facts. And these are in relation to the different countries where they apply. So as far as the future for petroleum is concerned, yes, we need to exploit the mature fields. And definitely the emerging frontiers, the Gulf of Guinea, and of course the East African gas systems, and of course shale assets. And heavy oil, we've hardly touched them. I'm happy that one of my colleagues that we used to work together also in BP is sitting at the back there. Again, that's part of his forecast about 4 or 5 years ago. This is where we are. We've hardly touched the heavy oils. So these are just coming on stream because, again, technically, they are difficult to actually be able to recover. And that's why we need the game-changing technologies. They are needed for us to be able to meet the challenge in future. But like I said before, we need skilled manpower. And like a psychologist in this university actually said, it's not just having individuals. In this industry, we may need 1 or 2 Socrates, but we need team players. That's why the human factor comes into being. There are different specialties in being able to, again, produce hydrocarbons. So all of the team players, and it's not just an engineering issue. It's not just, as we call it, technical. There are psychologists that need to be involved. And some of the game-changing technologies, I want to believe that in future we will be actually diving deep water rather than actually fly helicopters. That's one of the areas that I see that the industry will go in order to be able to exploit the deep waters. So as part of that, it's that these are going to be the challenge for the future. We are already at 3,000 meters. That's about 10,000 feet of water depth. That's where we are right now, and slightly above that. Some getting to 11. In Campos Basin, they're already hitting about 11,000 feet of water depth. In Gulf of Guinea, it's 10,000. In many places in Nigeria and areas of Ghana. So there are pipelines. Subsea completion becomes really very important. But there are what I call very interesting, where it goes there, problems that we need to be able to deal with. And we need that uptake in technology to do that. And that's where universities actually come in. And these deep waters, we are here right now, and we will continue to explore for more. But in the short term, even improve the recovery in these key areas. So these are some of the challenges. And I think it's in 1996, actually, about the time that I moved here, the Statoil was thinking about, let's have everything subsea. Produce, process with the refinery. The dream is still there. And that will make things a lot easier for us. It means we can drill, produce, independent of water depth, and buy into military technology. I don't know if you are aware, US and Britain and Russia, they have submarines permanently, the Black Sea or name it. So submarine drilling will be one of the game-changing technologies in future. And I'll pull some quotes, which some senior colleagues put up. The International Energy Agency, for example, said way back in 2011 that this is the age for gas. And I agree with that. And we've seen that increase with our forecast over time. Likewise, the outgoing chairman then said, and Shell and BP are basically, and I'll quote Steve, really gas companies. They have more resources. And this is what Shell wants to be, a gas company eventually. At the same time, the Energy Institute, to which I also belong, actually also forecasted about 3 years ago that 75% of future supply will come from deepwater Gulf of Guinea in Africa. And I buy into that. But does that mean there's no hope for the UK? I don't think so. I think there's a lot of hope. The mature assets are still very there. Like I said, it's only 40% we've recovered. Likewise, there's a lot of stranded gas and oil still in the business that can still be tapped into. And the ultra deep water is still there, Atlantic margin and beyond, they're also still there. And the heavy oil, they're hardly touched. Excite Energy and the rest of them are buying some of the marginal ones, but they are difficult to produce. But I believe, and I feel passionate about this, that we need to take advantage of the shale assets. They are low-hanging fruits. Yes, and part of our duty in the university and elsewhere is to help the government come to the right decision to know what the economic costs and impacts are and what the technical risks are. Personally, I believe the risks are low, but that needs to be proven. And this is where we are in the North Sea. This is the latest from Oil and Gas Authority. Sorry, Margaret. You can see the trend even from the Norwegian side, still much more stable. From the UKCS aspect, this is the situation. So you can see the decline. But likewise, I've separated some of the data. The proven and probable are the blue, but the possibles, which are called the potential resources, likewise, they are also in decline. While you also look at the gas reserves, again, you can see the decline. But having said that, like I said, these are still representing areas that haven't just been marginally explored. And it's an opportunity for universities in the UK. At the moment, Tobermory by Total, it's the longest tieback. GoldenEye, again, my good friend at the back there, Craig, actually, again, is one of the juicy areas that are under development right now. So there are opportunities that are still there, but there are challenges and technical challenges. And in the North Sea, it's very expensive. For those who may not know, the expense has been going up for quite some time. and globally too. A well is about $80 million. That's high. That's for one well. So these things don't come cheap, but they can only be reduced by improved technology and by having quality people. I don't mean degree holders, quality people to be able to deal with them. And you can see the trends of the low-hanging fruits, therefore, that at least in the short term, while the game-changing technologies have been developed, my suggestion is that at least we take care of the low-hanging fruits that can meet our short-term needs while we're looking at the game-changing technologies. And the trends that there are many of such, both in Europe, even in Scotland, for us to be able to take advantage of. So these are what I call the opportunities for the universities. And I will come specifically to LGU in 1 minute. I want to address LGU specifically. Yes, we want to be a model university of the future, but we really need serious surgery to handle our structure to achieve that. So there are opportunities for us, the game-changing technologies. We are doing a number of researches now, and a number of universities are also doing the same. But should RGU be aiming to be a Russell University? For those of you who are footballers, Leicester won the Premiership. I want RGU to be a Leicester among universities. And that means it's a team that must meet. It's not producing one or two Socrates. We have to have a team. And I'm not sure that that is gelling yet within the system. We must also run as a business for us to actually be able to achieve that. And there are huge opportunities in the emerging nations. RGU, for example, again, its target market is those areas. But I'll tell you, you can see because of downturn in economics, the numbers are drying out. So should we be doing this distance learning stuff? It's no longer sustainable. And I can tell you those countries are rebranding. So does that mean should we reach out to them? And I'll give you an example, because I was managing one of the spin-out companies of the university. I recruited 4 engineers. 2 trained in Edinburgh. The 4 of them from the same university. 2 were fantastic, another 2 were horrible. And when I was doing the staff review, I later find that 2 of them were trained in the Dubai campus by distance learning. They just get the CDs. You can't have quality like that. So we need to change our business model. And can we still reach out to the students? Yes. We can do it by virtual campus. Still teach them by virtual campus. And that means, and I want to say this, I had the privilege of following what we used to call the sandwich program. Government, industry, and academia. The government provided the framework, and industry contributing. I recall then, I think it was 10p per barrel of oil produced in Nigeria, and the government gives tax relief for that. So as the students actually spend 6 months in the industry and 6 months back in the unit. And again, secondment from industry increases collaboration. It was a British formula. Why did we abandon it? We have students now with degrees. With due respect, many of the students, and with due respect to the students here, I think we're giving them what they want. We need to be giving them what they need. We need skilled manpower for the next 10 years, and we need to make that difference as a university. And part of our job for success as a business, we must increase our consultancy level. In the US, universities farm into oil fields, and they use us as part of the platform. Why can't we do that here? And I can tell you right now, universities in Nigeria are doing the same, farming into assets, where they can also be able to collaborate. So I'm going to come to this specifically, and this is the point in which I want to be able to talk more about what we do. This university has always had a very long relationship with industry, many years. I don't know if many of you know the Offshore Survivor Center started, the boat was in the School of Engineering, the first boat. We have to stop having potential. But like I said before, this university has a long history with industry. We created this management network 15 years ago. Phase A starts tomorrow. At 8 o'clock, I'll be there. And we have 41 companies. And as far to Australia and Canada. So there's the platform for us to actually continue to be involved in this. We started as 3. We simply initiated it as our GU, and we Shell support and BP support. But then it has grown in which, as partners, because we understand what the challenges are. But we need to build on this. And I want to introduce the university, and a number of things have changed over time, and I'm going to use this as a suggestion for the university. RGU is not my alma mater, but I've spent 20 years here. I'm passionate about this university. I believe we can be leaders in the oil and gas. We have to engage more with industry. I understand from the last statistic that I got that there are actually more alumni from RGU than any other university in Scotland working in the North Sea. We need to tap into them. We need to be able to use the opportunity of the relationship that they have to bring that on board. And we need to, I'm happy, we are rebranding right now. I'm happy that we've shaved out airline. There are no longer deans in heading each of these, and the business school is also being expanded. But I'm happy that we created the Oil and Gas Institute to be able to at least support many of the work that we are doing here. But there's still a disconnect. I wish the communication is as straightforward as this organogram. There's still a disconnect between management and the staff. We are all stakeholders in the university. And at the end of the day, I want to say, I've had the privilege of working in 3 universities. In the University of Benin, you have an academic board of studies. They take decisions, they discuss issues about the department, and through the head of good, they have representation in Senate in which they get their views on. So each of the partners, and one of the things I found in RJU, staff are extremely passionate about this university. They are hardworking, but we need to equip them to actually be able to contribute to what we do in the next 10 years. It's not enough to be asking them to actually generate research grants. We have to invest in infrastructure for them to go to the next level. I'm 50% retired. We need these young people to fill the pipeline and to make this university great, not being a potential, to actually take it to the next level. You're going to need smart young people to be able to work with the university in taking this on board. And then, of course, where they generate technologies, these technologies can be licensed out for universities to actually be able to generate resources. I don't believe the job of the university is just to make money. You need to create wealth. And trust me, like my old man used to say, when you create wealth, you will always be rich. RGU must try to create wealth, must actually try to, in its target market, increase its presence with collaboration. I think that's the kind of situation I would like to see. Because we have a number of research teams, and apologies to some of my colleagues, these are the research teams in the School of Engineering, and we do collaborate and we generate papers. Papers are fine. And the research assessment exercise is fine. But it's what we make out of it as a university that's more important. And quote me, in 10 years' time, we are not going to get that government grant again. Universities must run as a business, they must generate their funds. And the time for us to start is now. I believe RGU has started well, especially with the Institute. I think we can build on the platform of that. Like I said in the introduction, universities in 10 years' time that don't actually get their acts together will be taken over. City University, as I'm speaking with you, 1st of September is already taken over by University of London. This university has what it takes. It's had a long relationship with industry, has what it takes to be able to move things to the next level. And yes, we've been doing a number of researches, and I want to congratulate my colleagues that we've covered a number of areas. But many of these, we have IPs in them. They need to be translated into wealth. Again, license to industry to be able to support them. But the things we are doing now are a scratch of the surface, but it's a good platform for us to take things to the next level. Because these are the industry challenges. There's a downturn. We want to reduce operational cost. So we want to, again, make our lifting costs as low as possible. And we are already contributing to real-time diagnosis and solution, and I'll use 2 seconds to actually showcase one of the softwares we have. Is the complement of these integrated research outputs that actually form some of those software support. And that is helping us to support industry in being proactive rather than being reactive. And for the benefit of those who don't actually know about the industry, we have a number of what I call the supply chain. We explore, then we drill to find the oil, we complete, we test, we produce, and then, of course, like some parts of the North Sea now, we decommission. And people have complained about some of the techniques that, again, that we use, running seismic. Like I said, I don't know, some of you who have watched some of the movies, this is a porous media. Can I, for example, drill in here with nano system flying through this reservoir? The answer is possibly yes. And Saudi Aramco is already testing some of those. And when we are exploring, these are some of the structures, examples that we look at. Water is always present. That's why you find in places like Fortis in the North Sea, it's already produced 98% water. In the game-changing technology, can we help to reduce some of those? And when we put the whole process facility in place, this is literally what they look like. And at the end of the day, there's the rock, and there's the wellbore scenario, and tying into the facilities. And it is those pains that have actually the area where it's more painful. That's why we are strong in well engineering. We are strong in, again, deep water development, and we are very strong in sand management, and of course, facilities. But at the same time, we have the DAT facility to be able to link all of these together. I'm aware that they are bringing a team from different companies so that they can be team players. So we need to build on that. They are scratching the surface. In the next 10 years, we need to move and build on those success. And that's why you find that in the petroleum engineering group, we cover a number of key areas: sand management, the well engineering, subsurface, and of course, trying to go into real time. Because the challenges are more, especially when it comes to the deep water. Each of these areas, they need to be able to connect. If this drops out, the whole card will fall. It's a domino. So there must be success in each of these, and that's why we see the connection between our system. And that's why, in our own little way, and I think we are one of the first to be able to do this, we can actually be able to decide when a well, if it will produce and when, and so on and so forth. And we have the software to be able to support the industry in doing that. On a bigger scale, we are going into the aspect whereby we recognize there will be some sensors in certain parts of some of these tiebacks here. Just to give you some examples. Some of these tiebacks here, like what Total have in Angola, is 240 kilometers. Nobody can afford to put sensors across all of those. But knowing what happens, for example, inside of the well, inside of this pipeline, diagnose how and when they will happen can actually help to prevent the problem. And that's one of the things we've been doing at this point in time. But we want to take it to the next level where the modeling can link with the sensor and with machine learning, again, with our School of Computing, case-based reasoning and pattern recognition supported by people can actually enable the industry to be able to work better. And what we've been trying to do is to help prevent some of these problems. These are challenges industry face. This is hydrate blocking a pipeline. You can see how big that is. And when you have a pipeline, it could be a pipeline that is supplying gas to perhaps so many towns. So hydrate forms and they block that. Or you have the heavy oil, or you have the wax paraffin blocking, or you produce sand. That gives you a lot of challenges. So I want to end with a few of the areas where I see opportunities for RGU, where RGU actually need to be able to move further. I think we should continue to build on the applied research. But again, we have to intensify our collaboration with industry. And again, provide the infrastructure for staff. We need to invest heavily. We are short on infrastructure for personnel to be able to work. And because it is true that we can be able to marshal staff. I think there's a disconnect. The communication aspect, it's a difficult aspect which we need to be able to work with. Now, like our target market, we need to engage with countries like Nigeria and most of the emerging countries, but I don't believe the current strategy is actually sustainable. We need to invest in a virtual campus type of scenario that we can deal with and collaborate with the local institutions. The area where we have, I think there was a time, according to my statistics, we had 1,750 Nigerians doing MSA program in RGU. I don't know what the number is now, but that will never happen again. It wouldn't. But they are rebranding too. But how can we they still need the support. They still need to be engaged in terms of utilizing the game-changing technologies. So I think we need to rethink how we will do that. And I think the virtual campus will help. Collaborating in the area of research where there can be sharing of staff to be able to build their own expertise is what is going to work better. And that's where the government comes in, because in the UK, I see no reason why a relation of mine should come to the UK. He pays £16,000. He can't even do the 20 hours a week part-time in NASDAQ. He has to pay £150 to be able to harness the NHS for each member of his family. He has to have £10,000 for him to have the visa. When he can go to US and it's compulsory as a research student to be a graduate assistant and be paid for it. Why does he have to come here? So we need to change that. That's why I call it's a team thing. I want RGU to lead, rather than actually wait, to lead in actually, again, canvassing the government through our politicians to be able to relax some of those areas. I can tell you, many of those people want to come to this country. My good friend here will agree with me. Many Nigerians want to come to the UK. But there's a synergy to study. There's a history of relationship. But there are barriers that's actually been in play. I don't know why the government has done it, and I'm not criticizing the government. They might have their reasons because they've made it a global thing. But it is important that that team, university, academia, and industry need to work together. And I want to see RGU actually leading in that area. So before I go into this, I just want to show you one area that I will just bring out quickly, because that's one key area that we've been working on. And this is a typical one of our software. Apologies to Shell. I just wanted to use this to some of their data. I'll do this design quickly, but we use this system for diagnosis. And that means that at the end of the day, I don't know why, sorry. I don't know why. Sorry, I was looking at it from here. I need to find out why. I think I need to shut it down and reopen it. I think that's what the gentleman said. My apologies.
There we go.
No, the slide is on, but I wanted to show the other one. Give me a second. No, I don't think that it's it. It's okay. Yeah, I have it here, but it's not. Yeah, give me a second. I'm sure it will come on. Let me just reopen it. Maybe it will. It shouldn't be happening, but okay. Let me continue with my slide, and if the gentleman is still in the room and he made some changes to that and asked me to do it the other way. But the main thing that I wanted to indicate there is a simple example how we've been able to pull all of our results of the research to actually turning it to what industry can use. The individual researches are fine, but they don't answer the questions. And I want to end with that. I don't have the answers to, and I'm not going to provide the right answers to the game-changing questions. But my kid said I'm a dreamer, and I like that. One of the things we want to start looking at, if you look at rats, it can smell things. I'll tell you what we do when we're exploring for hydrocarbon right now. We do the seismic to try to see if there's a structure there, and then we drill a number of wells to identify whether the hydrocarbon is there. Then we drill more wells to look at the aerial extent. For example, can we drill a pilot hole and let the nanorats simply continue to fill through the system? If that is achievable, we are not the first to try to start this. It will save the industry almost, with my estimate, $20 billion. Even on land location in places like Nigeria now, shooting a seismic is $30 million for even just a mountain appeal. And again, can we create, we have a lot of casings, can we have liquid casing that can actually reinforce the wall of the hole? Almost like our block system does, and provide the necessary integrity and reduce the drilling problem. Again, can we continue to monitor? At the moment, we monitor pressures in the reservoir from the wellbore. Can we continue to actually be using those sensors flowing through the porous medium to be giving us real-time reservoir pressure? And can we be using the nanosensors to improve oil recovery? This is already happening. Or when we have sand production, can we freeze the sand in place to reduce? So these are some of the questions that I'm beginning to ask. And in some of those areas, we are no longer dreaming about them. By Q1 of 2017, I think we are putting some of the proposals in place to be able to at least start with some of those pilot studies. I want to end with this. And I'm sorry if I've exceeded the time a little. I still believe, and strongly so, that globally, there's still a lot of future for oil and gas. Massive amount still out there. We've only explored less than 10% of the earth crust, and out of the 10%, it's only 40% we've been able to get. I still also believe that the shale and the offshore asset will continue to form the cornerstone of future supplies in Scotland and globally. But we need to act fast, especially in Scotland. I think England is already allowed for some element of that, and the Institute for which I'm a fellow, Institute of Materials, Metals and Minerals, again, has actually done some risk assessment, which is form part of the decision-making process. Like I said, we are not politicians, but we can help in Scotland and through the university to be able to support the government, even as part of these public consultation going on, to give our opinion and be able to help the government to achieve the objective. But irrespective of whether it's shale or it's offshore, again, we need game-changing technologies. And we need the right skills to be able to do that. I'm not talking of degree holders, I'm talking of people that have the competence that this industry actually needs. But that is part of what is creating many of our problems. Many of those $80 million are due to lack of informed knowledge. People have the knowledge, but they don't have the understanding. People can't make the difference in the judgment. Universities must engage with industry to actually get the right people, not just anybody coming to the university to say they have experience, the right people, and even with the, again, form the catalyst with the young people that we have to enable us actually justify that. RGU must lead in that area. We can't just be waiting for the Russell University. RGU has what it takes to actually do that. It's got a long history with the industry. I'm frustrated by the fact that the university has not lifted up. That's an extremely long history, and it needs to build on that a lot more. It needs to be more aggressive and proactive. And we have the Sion Woods to be able to support that. We need to we shouldn't be shy away from that. And again, like I said, RGU must position itself to be able to do that. But trust me, you will never get 1,000. You'll be lucky if you get 200 Nigerians next year. You'll be very lucky. And that number is going to change. So our business model needs to change. It must change. So it must be based on collaboration. So that business model must be based on partnership with the local universities. And that's why, again, private universities are growing in Nigeria. I think there are almost 100 of them now. So we have the opportunity and the platform to be able to do that. But just sending manuals to people, it's not the answer to the question. They just read them. And still, traditionally, you have to engage with your students. The students also have to engage with each other, not just as numbers. The distance learning students, that's what they are. They're just numbers. So with the virtual campus, I think it's possible that the RGU can do that. Saudi Arabia has been able to do that in their medical schools. So at the same time, we should stop trying to be a Russell University. RGU must rely on the team effort that it has. And that's what made Leicester to win the Premiership next year. They wouldn't win it again, but they might win the Champions League. They don't have fantastic players. They don't. And RGU should stop looking for Socrates. They have people that can actually, they need to build that team. That synergy must be there. Don't need to be Aberdeen Uni. I don't want RGU to be the best modern university. It's derogatory to me. I don't like the slogan. RGU needs to be recognized for what it is strong at. And to me, I think one of the catalysts of how that can happen, even with the virtual campus, the software I was going to show, which I want to use to emphasize this point, and that's what technology does sometimes, is at the end of the day, the virtual reality software that I use, the pilot one, I borrowed from this Sunderland. I don't know whether Richard Dine is here. And they said, oh, we've got the software, and we used it, and before we bought ours. There are a number of departments actually using virtual reality to do so many things. And I think it would be great for our GU to actually have a virtual reality center here or Oakley or whatever, and that can, part of the research and building a virtual campus, we have the university to be able to achieve this objective. I hope I've managed to be able to convince some of you. I'm still arguing with my daughter. She believes that this industry, yeah, they need us, but that we need to plow the money into renewable. And I want to thank you for listening.